All right, joining us now is 2024 Republican presidential candidate, former Vice President Mike Pence is with us. Mr. Vice President, I want to ask you right off the top here, you know, a lot of this, if we go back to the Iraq War, of which you are very, very familiar, and you think of those moments, and you think of Fallujah, and you think of Mosul, and you think of some of the toughest moments, when you think of the reboot of the conflict, because mistakes were made early. Right. Military technology has become way more sophisticated. It has advanced to levels where wars can be fought by people in American cities pushing buttons and with pinpoint accuracy hitting targets, hitting, you know, the head of a pin, for crying out loud, which is how sophisticated it is. My question to you, when you marry this new technology, military technology and ingenuity, to these conflicts, how does it change the look of war? Does it take away some of the component of risk, going door to door, stepping over IEDs in the process?
Well, first, let me just say, I think it's extremely important that we speak with one voice as a nation, that America stands with Israel, and that we will stand
Amen.
with Israel tonight. We will stand with Israel when this ground assault begins, and we will stand with Israel every day through the hard fighting and loss that will occur until they achieve an outright victory. They have no choice in this moment but to crush Hamas. I mean, you and I both know we lived through these years. 2005, the Bush administration decided to turn Gaza over to Hamas. It's been a catastrophic failure. It's been a policy of containment. Can't be that anymore. That horrific assault, claiming 1,300 lives of men, women, and infant children, must be met with a crushing response that ends Hamas as a threat from Gaza once and for all. Now, I'm very heartened to hear some of your guests say that Israel is today focused on hostage rescue. I had hoped that President Biden would direct Joint Special Operations Command, our Delta Force, our Navy SEALs to work in close proximity with Israeli Defense Forces because we've got Americans that are held hostage. And I respect at least the reporting that just happened on your broadcast, that there's a focus on getting our hostages home. But look, I think we ought to be making it clear that with Americans in harm's way, with our cherished ally Israel suffering this brutal assault and now hostages being held, that we ought to make it clear to Hamas that they either turn them over or we're coming in, and we're coming in hard. I mean, I have no doubt the IDF's hostage rescue personnel, special forces are the top of their game, but we're the best in the world, and there are Americans involved. One other thing I would say to you, Sean, is, you know, we heard one of your guests a moment ago talk about the border to Egypt is closed. That is totally unacceptable. If I was president of the United States, I'd be on the phone with President El-Sisi, and I would be saying, open your border. Let's start with women and children. And send us the bill. We'll set up the refugee camps. But the very idea that Egypt, for whom we supply military support and components, but for whom we have partnered in taking down terrorist elements in Sinai during our administration, would be shutting their door in this dire hour is utterly unacceptable. And lastly, if I was president, you know, the USS Eisenhower battle group, I think, just pushed off yesterday. I would end any debate about that at the Pentagon or the White House. I would direct them to the Eastern Mediterranean, have them pull alongside the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier battle group. So we send a clear message to Iran, a clear message to Hezbollah in Lebanon, a clear message to Assad's murderous regime in Syria, that all of them are to stand down. And if a wider war ensues here, the United States will stand shoulder to shoulder to defend the Jewish state of Israel.
Mr. Vice President, let me ask you this, because ISIS grew under the Obama-Biden administration. ISIS was destroyed under the Trump-Pence administration. It didn't get a lot of fanfare when you really look back on it, but it was a sophisticated military strategic effort that literally went backwards, and as they grew, they began to shrink. And you wiped out the caliphate, and it got very little notice. You got very little credit for it. but you did it with overwhelming military force and the precision technology that I have been bringing up all night. I ask you, based on the technology that you have far more knowledge of than I do, and that our audience would have, with that technology, how possible is it to use strategies that defeated ISIS in this case? I know it's more complicated because of the hostages that we've been talking about all night, but can those strategies be applied here?
Well, look, thanks for giving credit to the armed forces of the United States. Look, it was Barack Obama who called ISIS the JV. Remember that?
I do.
And then they took over a landmass the size of Ohio. At the end of the day, our administration unleashed our military. We essentially took the safeties off and we said, take the fight to them. And I think everything begins when you're dealing with terrorists, which Hamas, I heard some of those protesters talking about about free Palestine, or how they were against killing civilians. Look, Hamas did not invade Israel to free Palestine. They invaded Israel to kill Jews. And it's their objective, it's their goal to kill Jewish civilians, to essentially drive Israel to its knees and drive Israel out of existence. And so I think the first order of business is to make it clear that you're going to take the safeties off, that you're going to lean in. With regard to the precision technology, look, ISIS in many cases was out in the open. They were spread out over a large region. This is going to be house-to-house stuff. It's much more analogous to what you just referred to, Sean, as that surge that took place in places like Ramadi in the Iraqi war. This is going to be hard fighting, and it literally is going to be building by building, house by house. And it's one of the reasons why I think it's absolutely imperative that Palestinians living in Gaza take to heart those leaflets, take to heart the warnings, get out of those areas, because Israel's going to have to move in. They're going to have to move in with heavy armor, but they're going to have to move in with overwhelming force, house to house.
Question.
Just like the surge did in Iraq. And they're going to have to do everything in their power to hunt down and destroy the 30,000, 40,000 Hamas terrorists who are holed up in Gaza today.
Are you suggesting, and do you think the American people will be accepting of boots on the ground, American boots on the ground, in the case of hostage rescue?
Well, look, it's what our Delta Force and Navy SEALs do better than anybody in the world, and we're talking about Americans here, right, Sean? I mean, I know there's some other people in the public debate on our side of the aisle that are questioning American commitment, American involvement. They like to use words like boots on the ground, but I'm talking about Americans held hostage in Gaza. And I'm just telling you, I've been in the Situation Room a lot. This is a moment where you tell Joint Special Operations Command to begin immediately to prepare to mobilize, whether it's Delta Force or whether it's the Navy SEALs, work with the Israeli Defense Forces Special Operations, and as I said before, make it clear to Hamas that you either turn them over or we're coming. We're going to come and get them. And we're going to bring them out. We're better at that than anybody in the world, and I think we need to be prepared to do it. But at the end of the day, look, this is a moment where there are tragic days ahead, and I just want to prepare the American people for the fact that when we say America stands with Israel, we have to be prepared to stand today, tomorrow, and every day until they achieve outright victory and destroy Hamas once and for all, and I will.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. As you are watching, this is in real time. Gaza being bombarded, a massive air offensive by Israel into Gaza. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.